Hey, good morning, everybody. It is about 7:45 a.m. on this TGIF Friday, the the 16th of May. That's why it's Friday, May 16th, 2025. Like I said, it's 7:45 a.m. Pacific time. And first of all, I do apologize if you hear any vroom-vrooms. I'm recording this on my phone, so that means you'll probably hear things that are related to text messaging, Facebook messaging, you name it. Also, if you hear a big vroom, that's my bank telling me that something was declined, but I'm not going to have to worry about that for, the next. Well, I'm not going to have to worry about that after this Monday. I will put it that way. Anyway, though, I wanted to come on here because first of all, if you hear me kind of cough a little bit, it's because of allergies and all that. I do apologize. But, well, like I said, I wanted to come on here for one reason. It's something I wanted to talk about, but never got a chance to do due to, circumstances that, again, if you've been following my channel, you kind of understand, are beyond my control sometimes. But with that said, let's get into the topic that I wanted to talk about for a while. And shout out, I think it's to Drop Spiel Comics. They did a video on it. They did another video on it previously, which I also touched upon when I talked about it. And I think the title pretty much, of this video, this audio video gives it away. But yeah, things have changed for a certain main female Spider-Man character. We'll put it that way. Well, I don't think I was far off when I kind of alluded to the fact that, Mary Jane, being bonded with Venom in the way that she was kind of reminiscing, if not similar, to how she was bonded to the symbiont or the symbiote, if you will, or what was left of the Carnage symbiote that made her into Queen Carnage in the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon. I don't think I was far off when I basically said that there was a similarity, or at least kind of touched upon that or anything else, because basically it's not just a similarity, it's almost, straight on identical. Almost straight on identical. And the reason I say that mainly is because as we find out, and again, shout out to Drop Spiel Comics on YouTube, they touched, when they talked about this, we found out why Mary Jane is basically bonded to Venom in the way that she is. And it's not just a bond to where, hey, if a sonic sound goes off, Venom detaches from her and she's fine, right? No. This is a bond that basically is about life and death. That's what it is. Basically, it's essential. It's pretty much a need that both be, in proximity with each other, if you kind of get what I'm saying. But yeah, that's basically what this situation is. But the way it's, described, the way it's talked about, if you will, in the video that Dropspill put, and others I'm sure touched upon it as well, have discussed, the way, this came about, the way, this is I guess you could say an ongoing part of MJ's life now, is mainly because of her love interest, the guy that she's with now in the comics. I think his name's Paul, right? Well, basically, Paul is a very inventive kind of guy. He dabbles in mechanics and, electronics and all that, and, just invents things here and there. Well, basically, we know that Mary Jane took on a superheroine persona of Jackpot. We've known she's done that for a while. I think she even started doing that when she was still with Peter. That's pretty much, the origin of how Mary Jane's role plays into this. But what's interesting, though, about it is that this also takes place, this whole her bonding with Venom situation, it takes place after the more recent symbiote Venom Carnage saga that they did, and basically where Venom was on death's door as well. He was pretty much, Venom was pretty much not, not basically long for the world. or existence. We'll put it that way. But Mary Jane, she's a little bit more different in a way, because what and look, I'll admit I haven't followed the Spider-Man comics, the main ones for a while, the main related ones and connecting ones and all that. I admit I haven't really followed them that much, but from what I'm understanding, sometime between when she first became Jackpot to where she was recently as Jackpot, something occurred to where now when she basically uses the Jackpot, or not now, I should say, but when she did, I should say, it's early, I do apologize. Like I said earlier, when I started, it was 7:45. Now it's 7:51 a.m. But anyway, basically, when Mary Jane was doing the Jackpot thing, later on, even when she met Paul, again, like I said, being very inventive and very inventive, very like innovative and all that, decided to kind of up the ante with her. Now I don't know what happened in between to when when she become Jackpot. Basically, it would affect her on a molecular structure or molecular scale, but it does, because essentially what Paul does is he creates this like little wristband she wears, and it's kind of like a slot machine. You find it, or you play at the casinos. It's kind of like that. So what happens is anytime she'll land on a certain pattern, she'll gain certain powers and everything. She'll gain certain abilities. Like there's one scene in a flashback of the recent issue where we find out why her and Venom are together, to where when she would, I guess, roll the wristband, the Jackpot wristband, if you will, and it would match up to, let's say, cherry, and then, sledgehammer, her hands would literally turn into sledgehammers. Like Peter Gabriel's hands did during the claymation portion of Sledgehammer, the music video from '86. Basically like that. Basically, she could essentially be any kind of form she needed to be. She could be any kind of form she needed to be, but it would take a toll on her. It would take a toll on her. At least this is what I'm getting. Like I said, I haven't really, kept up with them for a while. But this is at least what I'm getting. That basically it took a toll on her, to the point that if she got on her wristband 3 skulls, that's it. 3 skulls basically means on her wristband as Jackpot, that's it. She's done. She's history. And she would literally start to disintegrate into nothingness. Yeah, she would start to disintegrate into nothingness. Basically, she'd break apart and cease to be. That's pretty much the situation. So as long as she wouldn't hit the skull or anything like that, and hit something else, she'd be okay. But sometimes if she did hit a skull, but then hit cherry, and then hit something else, it would basically turn her somewhat into a half-dead version of herself. And that's how she kind of encountered Venom. Because she had basically gotten to that point where when they encountered each other, she pretty much was half dead. She was a skeleton. She was pretty much zombified, if you will. And Venom, knowing that she's going to need help and everything, according to the story, the first thing that went through Venom's mind, because obviously Peter's honor as Spider-Man and everything, his integrity as Spider-Man, basically influenced him. And this is, of course, at a time now where Venom is more good than anything, and I think that did reflect in the movies as well. Venom sees her and the condition she's in, and then sees that, she just hit that 3 skulls thing, and she starts to disintegrate. So what does he do? He basically says to himself, he basically does as he explains to Paul and Robbie. Yeah, that's right, Robbie of the Daily Bugle. Basically explains to them that he only did what he felt Peter would do, what Spider-Man would do. And that's basically, he attaches himself on a molecular DNA level to Mary Jane. And Mary Jane, doesn't know this just yet. She doesn't know that. Well, she does kind of know it, but not really, or something, or anything like that. But basically, he attaches himself to her, and she still and she turns out all right. She's okay. He saves her essentially. But she is aware that he's bonded with her, but he does. She is aware he bonded with her, but not on that level just yet. Not like, hey, I'm going to be Venom for you and all that. We're going to be Venom now. We're going to be the new Venom. Because basically what happens is Mary Jane explains this in Flashback. And correct me if I'm getting anything wrong, guys. I would appreciate that. Correct me if I'm getting anything wrong. But basically, Mary Jane explains in Flashback that essentially Venom being part of her now affected her, her way of being Jackpot. Because instead of now hitting, the skulls and everything, instead she would hit Cherry, okay, and whatever power she would get, and instead of a skull, you get a Venom face. And that would be it. And what that would allow her to do is change into any other form. Any other form outside of what you would normally do as Jackpot and everything. So, for example, she said one of the things she ended up doing is when she rolled the dice, it came up Cherry, then like a goo or something like that, goo symbol, and Venom. Basically like a blob like I think basically one of the first forms she took on was that of a glob like slime girl, a slime creature. And she said this happened when she was like, in midair or something like that. And she ends up becoming, this form to the point that literally she falls onto the ground and splats. And we're not talking, splat and everything like, okay, she's splatted, but she's fine. You see her, stand back up. No, she literally splats into a puddle of goo. Yeah, she literally becomes a puddle of gunk, a puddle of gunk, if you will. And she does reform, but then what happens is it rolls again. Her Jackpot thing goes, a little cuckoo again, and it puts her into a Captain Marvel-like outfit. Captain Marvel-like outfit. And as she's telling this, she looks at Venom. She looks at Venom and basically acknowledges that what was happening to her would be, it would basically be the powers, that someone like a Venom would have, or basically, it was, these changes were things that she would go to thanks to the symbiont, or thanks to the symbiote, and just like a symbiote would do, or something like that. She basically sarcastically looks at him and like, yeah, I'm going through all these changes because of Venom, and all that, this adjustment, and it's just like a symbiote to have her do that. But long story short, it's acknowledged that both of them, as they make it clear as to why this happened, as I said earlier, basically they make it known that they have to stick together. They have to be, inseparable, or else both will die. And we find out more information as to why Mary Jane and Paul took in this young kid and everything, because of his connection with Eddie Brock and everything. Well, not just connection with Eddie Brock, but basically it's a situation to where if this one organization, I can't think of the name right now, finds this kid, it could mean trouble because of his connection with Eddie Brock and everything. So it could be trouble and everything. So basically, long story short, that's why Mary Jane and this Paul guy have this kid, under their roof. They took him in because of that connection. But what's interesting is we find out that Agent Venom, which is Flash Thompson, had been outside the entire time, overhearing everything. And he pretty much called Mary Jane out and says, hey, look, I heard what you had to say. I understand, but we have a problem right now. We have an issue right now. And basically what he's alluding to is either they're going to have to fight each other for Dylan's safety, or they're going to have to come up with an idea to protect him. because his one place wants him and all that because of his connection with Eddie. But overall, the revelation previously of Mary Jane being Venom was interesting. I talked about all the fun scenarios they could do if they want to get comedic and all that, and they pretty much have showcased in the flashback that they can do that, especially with her going into a blob-like slime state and splattering into a puddle. You know, I like that little humor there because that's something that if you're going to put Mary Jane in a situation like this, and I've said it before, and I say it with all due respect, no offense, but if you're going to put Mary Jane in a situation like this, it's obvious that, and again, I say it with all due respect, no offense, it's obvious due to the fact that the people behind the idea understand if you give a female character these kind of powers, not only can they use them for good and take things seriously, and everything with them, and like I said, use them for good and all that, and be a positive influence over the symbiote that they're hosting or they're attached to. But also, long story short, also the fact that they can also have some mischievous, I should say, easy for me to say early this morning, mischievous fun in the long run. They can have some mischievous fun in the long run. They could have like Mary Jane, like, hey, she doesn't have to worry about getting a dress or having a dress or anything for like say going out to dinner or going out to a gala or anything like that. All she has to do is just have the symbiote, the Venom symbiote, be like, okay, you want me to be your dress? No problem. Boom. She's got herself an instant dress. Or if she wants to go stealth but doesn't want it to be known as her or Venom, and I do apologize for that notification there. That is a Facebook Messenger. I told you that would probably happen, so I do apologize. But anyway, if she wants to go stealth and everything, but doesn't want to go as Venom or herself or as Jackpot, she could literally have herself covered up, completely from head to toe in goo, and blend in with the shadows and all that, blend in with the night, and maybe even if she has to like pose herself as like, let's say, a mannequin or a statue, she could do that as well. So there's a lot of possibilities she could do with this. And of course, as we saw with the flashback, she could also apparently now melt herself down into a puddle of goo if she has to get through certain, cracks and everything. And she can also use that for fun too. Be mischievous and all that, innovative, imaginative, stuff like that. So she has these abilities now, so she now has the powers of being, who she was at Jackpot, but now she also has that combined with Venom. So she can basically, merge her ideas and thoughts of what she could have done as Jackpot with what she can do now with Venom, or as Venom, and go from there. So a lot of possibilities that they can run with here, and it's to me basically just the start. It's just the start of something I think fans are going to like. Now, what's interesting, though, is you have the Paul character's reaction and everything to this, and he basically makes it known. In a very, I guess you could say, not rude, in rudely subtle way, but he kind of makes it known, essentially, that, towards the end of the comic, as he's saying something to Robbie and this kid they took in, he's basically telling them, or telling this kid, I should say, as well as Robbie, as Robbie's leaving, basically he's looking towards Mary Jane when he says this. He says something along the lines of, in his own sarcastic, kind of, I don't want to say rude way, but you can tell he's not happy, but he's kind of like, says something along the lines of, basically making it known, mostly to Mary Jane in a subtle way, that he's not fond of the fact that she is bonded for life, pretty much, for her own life, with Venom. He's not thrilled with that idea. He's not thrilled at the fact that, he can't, because they even touch upon it, because everybody was wondering, okay, well, wait a minute, if she's with Venom, or they're part of each other now, wouldn't that make things awkward? Paul and her wanting to get intimate, and we find out they have not gotten intimate because, he felt like something was off, and obviously she, I guess, in a way, would make it known that she wasn't in the mood, but also she would do that because, again, for her it would be awkward, if you know what I'm saying. But anyway, though, like I said, just had a cat walk by, and everything. We just had a cat walk by there and everything. But like I said, anyway, she. Hold on for a second. Let's try because out here. Hold on. If you hear this, I'm just putting my code for phone. Hold on. Sorry about that, guys. But like I said, as I was alluding to, he makes it very clear in a very subtle way as he's telling this kid and Robbie, as Robbie's leaving towards the end of the comic, and just right before Mary Jane gets this call from Flash Thompson, Paul makes it very clear that basically he's not fond of the fact that MJ and Venom, are now bonded. He's not fond of that idea, if you know what I'm saying. And again, everybody was wondering, like, well, wouldn't that make being intimate or getting intimate kind of awkward for them? And it does. Oh, it would. And they do touch upon that to where we find out that, Paul, the reason they wouldn't get intimate, I should say, is because Paul, I guess, found out that something, or not found out, but kind of felt like something was off, or Mary Jane was too tired and everything. So, so that's why they would not get intimate. And I think Mary Jane even alluded to the fact that, because she would be tired or not in the mood, they would not get intimate. But her reasoning for saying that, or at least making that the reason, was because of her bondship, if you will, with Venom. But again, you could tell that Paul, I think that's his name, is not fond of this. Now, what I think is going to happen, and this is just me, and again, I haven't kept up with the comics, anything, so I do apologize if I'm off about a few things. And again, please correct me in the comments if you would like. But anyway, I feel what could happen next is going to be making things really interesting. Now, I've read comics long enough. I've read comics, long enough and everything to the point that basically I can pretty much, even if I don't keep up with the comic, I can pretty much kind of see where certain things will go. And I could see Paul being who he is, because again, he's the one that created the wristband, the casino-like, the slot machine-like wristband, for Mary Jane to, utilize to come up with any kind of material, stuff like that she would want to come up with, or any kind of power she would need, or whatever the case may be. Just don't go under three skulls or else kaput, right? I've got a feeling what's going to happen is Paul will be the guy that will either he will betray Mary Jane. This is what I think could happen. This could be the first option. He could betray her and everything to this one organization, which Flash kind of works for, but doesn't like, the fact that they're going after this kid that MJ and Paul took in. So I could see Paul out of anger and basically desperate to want to find a way to separate safely MJ from Venom. I could see him basically, betraying them, not maliciously, but basically in a way where when he explains it to MJ, it'll be like, I did this because I want to find a way to separate you two, but keep you alive and get rid of that thing, So I could see that. Being one option or one direction they could go with. The other option I could see them doing, and this is just my opinion, if you will. And again, these are all just my opinions. The other direction I think they can go with is he'll try to come up with a solution to where, okay, how do I keep my girlfriend alive, but also still allow her to have to bond with the Venom symbiont, but keep them separate to where they're not connected on molecular structure, but are still kind of close enough to where, yeah, she could be fine, she could be okay, and the Venom could be okay. or the Venom symbiote can be okay. What can I do? What can be my solution? And I could see him, I could see that being a second option. Like he's gonna work tirelessly night and day to try to find a solution, find a way around it. So that's another option. That's another option. The third option, which is a possibility as well, is he could give himself to a symbiote. Now you might ask, well, what kind of symbiote would he, give himself to? Well, again, being someone that would not want to be living with the idea that his fiance and this once crazed symbiote, which is now good, Venom, are, one and the same, out of desperation to try to, separate them and try to get her away from it. I could see him giving himself to a symbiote that will corrupt him. It will corrupt him to the point that because he'll not be strong-willed like Mary Jane, it will corrupt him and take him over completely. I don't know what symbiote that could be. I don't know if that could be Toxin. I don't know if that could be a Carnage symbiote. I don't know. But I could see something like that happening as the third option. And that's how I see basically Paul's role, if you will, in this when it comes to, him having to deal with Mary Jane and Venom being basically one and the same now. I could see him, pretty much going down one of those three paths. Either betraying MJ and Venom to this one organization because he's desperate to get them separated and her away from it. Two, he'll be willing himself to stay up night and day to try to come up with a solution to where, okay, they could stay together, still be bonded and everything, but not on a molecular structure, so that, Mary Jane could still be alive, but, be connected in a way that's not like Venom's inside of her and everything. He could just be off, soaking in, just floating in a tub or in a tube or anything like that. Basically come up with a solution to where he could try to get that intimacy with MJ and not have it awkward, if you know what I mean. And then, of course, like I said, the third option, which is one they could do, is him giving himself up to a symbiote, which would corrupt him. But whatever one that is going to be up to them. But you know what I also see here? And I'm basing this off what I've heard through Drop Spiel and other places, in other YouTube comic channels, if you will. You know what I see probably going on here? And let me get some coffee for a second, guys. But you know what I see going on? Excuse me. You know what I see going on here? I see maybe, and this has just been something that's been going on lately at Marvel, with the MCU and everything, thanks to Kevin Feige, but it feels like it's trickling down into the comics portion as well. And that is the fact that I think the Marvel staff overall, not just with MCU, but now with the comics, because I feel like it's trickling down to them, the Marvel staff is starting to listen to what the fans are saying. And they're realizing, maybe putting Mary Jane with this guy wasn't the best idea. Maybe it wasn't the best idea and all that. So I could see them, honestly, maybe utilizing this new direction. They're taking MJ and Venom and Paul, and I could see them using it as to break MJ and Paul up. I could see that. I could see that as being a method. Because again, they're getting to a point now to where, basically, not just with the MCU, but again, it's trickling down and affecting all the other Marvel departments. I could see them, honestly, like I said, listening to fan feedback and finally coming up with a solution that will be beneficial to everybody. That'll be beneficial to everybody. You still keep the Paul character around, but you now separate him, and maybe if they go with that third option, make him an adversary. Who knows? But we'll see what they do. We'll see what the plans are going forward. We'll see that. But like I said, I would not be surprised if maybe this is a way of a way of making that happen, down the line, because fans have made it clear. Majority of fans, from what I'm understanding, have made it clear they do not like this, Mary Jane being with Paul, because to them, the standard norm is Mary Jane and Peter. It has always been the standard norm outside of Peter and Gwen. Now, Gwen apparently is coming back, full time. We don't know how and when and whether or not she'll have powers, but she is going to be coming back, if not already. But outside of her and Peter, the main relationship has always been, MJ and Peter. And fans were never happy when, they did what they did. And they've always wanted them in the Prime Spider-Man Earth 616 universe to be back together. This is why, excuse me, this is why basically you have the other Spider-Man comics, like the Ultimate Spider-Man comic and everything, where he and MJ are married and they have a daughter, and they're all Spider people. They're basically all Spider-Man, Spider-Women, the Spider family, if you will. This is why that one apparently is selling out a lot, or selling more than the main one, or the comics connected to the main one, because of the fact that that's what fans want. That is what fans are more accustomed to. So I'm not going to be surprised if maybe, like I said, this could be a method of getting Paul out of the picture, relationship-wise with MJ, and either just having him go his separate ways because this is something he can't handle or be accustomed to, or make him an adversary. Because like I said, there's three options they can go with. Three options to, where they can go with this. The first option, which would probably just lead to a breakup and them going their separate ways, is him betraying MJ to this organization, betraying her and Venom and the kid, because he's desperate in his mind to get MJ and Venom separated, and MJ back to just being herself, and Venom in the clutches of this organization. That could be one way they go, and that could just lead to a breakup. The second option, which could keep them together but be on rocky roads, is him trying to find a way and a solution to, kind of separate them, but do it in a way to where, they still need to be bonded, and everything, where they still need to be, connected, with each other, if you will. That's basically what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking and everything. Kind of still be connected to each other and all that, down the line. Hold on for a sec. Sorry about that. I was checking something on my computer. But anyway, I could see that being a second option, to where you could kind of keep them together, but it'd be very rocky. Probably not as much as it's going to be right now, but kind of in a way to where Mary Jane would understand what he's doing and everything. But, you could go to the second option, to where he'll try to find, he'll stay up night and day to try to find a solution to separate them, individually, but, doing it in a way to where they're still kind of connected, but Venom's not inside of her or anything. And, he's just somewhere else in the house, but close by. And then, they could just bond together when it's needed, or when she needs to go out and fight crime and stuff like that, or whatever the case might be. So I can see that as being the second option, to kind of keep them together, but not really. And then the third option, in my opinion, again, could lead to not just a breakup with them, but him being an adversary, an enemy, if you will. And that's him in a desperation of weakness, basically allow himself to be bonded to a symbiote, but it corrupts it, and it takes him over completely. So I could see one of those three things happening, but if they go with option 1 or 3, that's basically saying, hey, we're going to break these two up because, yeah, you fans have spoken. You guys don't like this guy. So we're going to break them up, and we're going to try to find a way to get, Peter with MJ again, somehow, some way. So that might be why they're doing this too. They might be getting ready to break these two up, but we'll see what happens. Because again, Paul's reaction, his, kind of very subtle, rude, not very happy reaction, and I guess you could say a comment towards the end of the comic, which he obviously was directing at MJ. He's not thrilled with this still. He's not thrilled with it whatsoever. But Robbie did point something out. He pointed out the fact that Paul, because Paul admitted it, he created the slot wrist thing for MJ, and Paul, in a way, in Robbie's mind, is kind of at fault for this. He's kind of at fault for this because that device made it easier for Venom and Mary Jane to bond, on a molecular DNA structure or scale. So he's kind of in on. So he's kind of he's kind of in this as well. So he can't just throw blame subtly or straightforward towards her or anything like that because of the situation. He kind of contributed to it because of the thoughtless thing. And so, long story short, it's going to be interesting for anybody that follows the comic, subscribe to it and all that, as to what they do next. It's going to be really interesting. But again, if they're going to keep them together, option 2 is going to be that direction to where basically he's going to try to find a way, stay up night and day, find a solution to, separate them but keep them together so that both survive. But if they are planning to break them up, then I could see option 1 and 2 being that, the way that, not 1 and 2, but option 1 and 3, I should say, being the way they could potentially go. But, that's just me. That's just me, though. But like I said, if they ever do want to do a lighthearted issue down the line with Mary Jane and Venom in this predicament, kind of lighthearted, kind of slice of life, take a break kind of deal, I could see Mary Jane having some mischiefy fun with the power she now has with Venom, to where she could, make him turn into a dress for her. She can melt down into a puddle of goo just to relax and everything, or whatever the case will be. I could see her having fun. I can. So, if they want to do something like that in the future, and I'm sure they're planning to do something like that in the future. But again, that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion and all that. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know how you feel about, the revelation of, not just from the previous issue, but from this recent one, of Mary Jane and Venom, Mary Jane being the new Venom, but also the revelation in this recent one to where her and Venom pretty much have to stay together to survive. Let me know what your thoughts are there. Let me know what your thoughts are on some of the fun, mischievous, imaginative, creative things Mary Jane can get into with the Venom powers at her side. Do you think maybe she'll do some of the things I suggested outside of what we saw in the flashbacks? Let me know what your thoughts are. And do you think also this could potentially lead, to Paul and her breaking up, if that is the intention, or do you think he could keep them together but be on a rocky road because maybe, as I said, option 2 could be the direction they go, where he tries to night and day figure out a way to separate them on a molecular, DNA structure, but keep them together as well, so both survive. Let me know what your thoughts are. Or do you think option 1 and 3 could be where they go, where he betrays, them to this organization, betrays them and Dylan to this organization because he's desperate to find a solution to get her separated from Venom, and that causes them to break up and go their separate ways? Or do you think option 3 could be where he gives himself up to a symbiote, allows himself to be fully corrupted because he's not as strong-willed as MJ is, and pretty much, not only do they break up, but he becomes an adversary, an enemy, if you will. Let me know what your thoughts are. Comment down below, like the video, ring the bell for notifications. Subscribe to the channel, share the video, guys. Also, click on the links in the description. Helps me out tremendously. And if you're into podcasts, you can find me at all your favorite podcast affiliates like iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora, Radio Public, Overcast. Wherever there is a podcast, you will find me. And I'm very sure maybe there is a slight chance you will find me on Sirius XM. I'm pretty sure you can probably find me there if you look hard enough as well. You can also find me, guys, at rumble.com at BWRoses, odyssey.com at BWRoses-5, You can also find me, ladies and gentlemen, at Vimeo at BW Roses. You can find me at deviantart.com at BVW1979. You can also find me at inkbunny.net at BW Roses. You can also support me and find me over at patreon.com at BW Roses, where I have a new video out. It's been out for a while. It's under the $3 and $5 tier. I talk about adult film actress Kara Reed. Check that out. I would greatly be appreciative if you can support me there, as well as with the $1 tip. Also, guys, you can support me through Venmo and Cash App. It'd be greatly appreciated. And also, guys, you can follow me at TikTok at BW Roses. You can follow me at Blue Sky at BW Roses and on Twitter, aka X, at BW Roses. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are overall on the situation. And until then, I will talk to you later. And have a good day. For right now, there is more content coming, so be ready.